Right? Picture this. It is 1973. Your mum has a brace of pheasants hanging in the back porch, gone slightly green at the neck, and that is exactly how she likes them. There is a glass bottle of raw milk warming on the doorstep, the cream already turning at the top. And in the kitchen, your Nan is stirring a pot of homemade brawn made from a pig's head she bought whole from the butcher that morning. None of this seemed strange. None of this was illegal. Half of it would land you a visit from Environmental Health today. Number 14 on this list could now get a butcher prosecuted under the Food Safety Act, and number 3 was pulled from British shelves after scientists proved what mothers had been feeding their children for years. These were not fringe practices. These were Tuesday. Hit subscribe, because what your mother considered perfectly normal would now make her a criminal. Let us count down. Number 20. Hanging pheasants until they were properly high. Every gamekeeper, farmer, and weekend shooter in 1970s Britain knew the rule. A pheasant hung by the neck for at least a week, sometimes 2 weeks, until the feathers came away with a gentle tug. Some swore by 10 days minimum. The bird would develop that gamey, almost cheesy flavor that defined a proper roast pheasant on a Sunday in October. Your dad would hang the brace in the cold porch, and your mum would judge readiness by smell alone. A bit of green at the throat? Perfect. The juices running cloudy? Even better. Today, hanging game beyond a few days at uncontrolled temperatures violates the Food Standards Agency guidance on safe meat storage, and a butcher selling birds aged the old way faces prosecution under the Food Safety Act of 1990. The bacterial loads now considered dangerous were once the entire point. We called it flavor. The state now calls it a public health risk. Number 19. Doorstep raw milk in glass bottles. The milkman left those silver-topped bottles on every doorstep in Britain, and roughly a quarter of them in the early 70s were unpasteurized. Straight from the cow, into the churn, into your kitchen by 6:30. Your mum poured it over cornflakes without a second thought. The cream rose to the top in a thick yellow plug, and the blue tits learned to peck through the foil before you got to it. Children drank pints of the stuff at school until 1971, when free milk for over 7s was abolished. But raw milk delivery continued in Scotland legally until 1983, and persists in England only under tight licensing today. Selling raw milk now requires registration with the Food Standards Agency, FSA, prominent warning labels, and direct sale only. The cheerful clink of a milk float at dawn, raw and unannounced, is gone. The bacteria that strengthened a generation are now grounds for a court summons. Number 18. Backyard pig butchering. In rural Britain in 1972, it was perfectly ordinary for a family to keep a pig in the garden, fatten it on kitchen scraps and brewer's grains, and have it slaughtered at home by a traveling butcher who came round with knives and a scalding tub. The whole street might share the joints. Your Nan paid in shillings or in trotters. Her chest freezer would fill with chops, belly, hocks, and that prized leaf lard for the year's pastry. Today, slaughtering a pig at home for sale, or even for sharing with neighbors, requires it to go through an approved abattoir under the welfare of animals at time of killing regulations. A traveling butcher dispatching a pig in your shed would now be committing an offense under multiple acts. The kitchen table economy that fed villages for centuries has been quietly outlawed. Number 17. Tartrazine in everything a child drank. Open any 1975 pantry, and you would find a bottle of bright orange squash glowing under the kitchen light like a traffic warning. That color came from Tartrazine, E102, a coal tar-derived dye that turned cordials, jellies, and birthday cake icing the kind of orange not found in nature. Your mum diluted it 5-to-1 and poured it into beakers for the whole road. Studies in the late 70s and early 80s began linking Tartrazine to hyperactivity in children, asthma attacks, and severe allergic reactions. By 2010, the EU mandated warning labels on any food containing Tartrazine and several related dyes, stating they may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. Manufacturers reformulated en masse, and the eye-watering orange squash of British childhood went pale. The drinks that fueled every sports day are now legally required to carry a health warning. Number 16. Cyclamate sweeteners in slimming puddings. First pattern break. Now here is where the science gets uncomfortable. Cyclamates were the wonder sweetener of the 60s and lingered in British kitchens through the early 70s. 30 times sweeter than sugar, no aftertaste, perfect for the new diet-conscious housewife slimming down for summer. Your mum kept a tin of Asbestos or Sweetex on the counter and stirred it into rhubarb crumble, lemon mousse, even into your school day Ribena. Then, in 1969, American researchers fed enormous doses to rats and produced bladder tumors. The United States banned cyclamates outright. Britain followed in 1970, but old stock lingered in pantries for years afterwards. Mothers were unknowingly serving children a sweetener their own government had just outlawed. Cyclamates were eventually rehabilitated in the European Union, but at strictly limited concentrations. The casual scoop of unmeasured sweetener into a child's pudding is now a regulatory offense. We were the rats. Number 15. Reusing chip shop dripping for months on end. Every proper British chippy in 1973 fried in beef dripping, and the same vat of fat ran for weeks, sometimes months, topped up but never fully changed. The color deepened from gold to mahogany to nearly black. That was the flavor. The fish came out with a coating no vegetable oil can replicate, and the chips tasted of beef. Today, the Food Safety Act and European Union regulations on cooking oil quality require chip shops to monitor total polar compounds, the chemical markers that develop in degraded fat, and to discard oil once it exceeds 24 to 27% depending on jurisdiction. A vat run for months would test off the chart. Your local chippy can be shut down for it. The deep, beefy, slightly burnt flavor that defined a proper Friday supper is now technically a violation. The chips of memory cannot legally exist. Number 14. Selling brawn made from a whole pig's head. Walk into any high street butcher in 1972 and you would see a pig's head sitting in the window, sometimes with the eyes still in. Your nan would order 1 for 2 and 6. Take it home, simmer it for hours with onions, sage, and a bay leaf, then strip the meat and set it in its own jelly. She would sell slices over the garden wall to neighbors who could not face the boiling themselves. Today, producing meat products for sale from your domestic kitchen, particularly anything involving offal or whole heads, requires registration as a food business, an approved processing facility, HACCP documentation, and environmental health inspection. The casual transfer of a slice of brawn for a few coins across the privet hedge is now a prosecutable offense under the Food Hygiene Regulations 2006. Nan would be done for trading without approval. Number 13. Smoking while cooking in school canteens. Hard to believe now, but in 1974, the dinner ladies serving up your steamed jam pudding were quite legally smoking cigarettes between courses, sometimes while stirring custard. The chip pan, the cigarette, and the kettle shared the same counter. Industrial kitchens, hospital catering, even some hotel pastry sections operated under a haze of Park Drive and Embassy No. 1. The workplace health, safety, and welfare regulations, and the smoke-free premises and enforcement regulations of 2006 made smoking in any enclosed workplace, especially one preparing food, a criminal offence carrying fines up to £2,500 for individuals and far more for the establishment. The dinner lady, with her cigarette clamped between her lips, ladling rice pudding with one hand and tapping ash into the bin with the other, would now be prosecuted on the spot. Number 12. Unpasteurized farmhouse cheese with no warnings. The wheels of Stilton, Cheshire and farmhouse cheddar that came round the village shop in 1973 were almost all made from raw, unpasteurized milk. Nobody knew. Nobody mentioned it. The cheesemonger sliced you a wedge, wrapped it in waxed paper, and sent you home. Pregnant women, the elderly, and small children ate it with abandon. Following several listeria outbreaks in the 1980s and the 1990s, the dairy products hygiene regulations now require any unpasteurized cheese sold in the United Kingdom to carry clear labeling, be produced under licensed conditions, and bear warnings to vulnerable groups. The casual slice of unmarked raw milk cheese, once the soul of a British ploughman's, now requires a paper trail and a written caution. The cheese is still legal. The way your Nan bought it is not. Number 11. Lead-glazed pickle crocks for chutney. Every Aga-warmed pantry in the early 1970s contained at least one earthenware crock of green tomato chutney, piccalilli or rum topf, often glazed with bright, cheerful colors. Those glazes, particularly the yellows, oranges, and reds, frequently contained lead compounds that leached into vinegary, acidic preserves over months of storage. The British standard for ceramic ware in contact with food was tightened in 1975 and again in 1988, and current European Union regulations strictly limit lead and cadmium migration from any ceramic container intended for food storage. Your Nan's beautiful Cornish ware, full of pickled onions for 2 years before opening, was slowly contaminating every spoonful. We adored those crocks. We displayed them on the dresser. We had no idea what they were quietly doing to the chutney inside. Selling them today for food use without certification is a regulatory offense. Number 10. Asbestos oven mitts and ironing pads. Second pattern break. Here is one that genuinely shocks people. Throughout the 1970s, Marks and Spencer, Woolworths, and every hardware shop on the high street sold oven gloves, baking sheet liners, and ironing board covers containing asbestos. The material was prized for its heat resistance. Your mum pulled a Sunday roast out of a belling cooker wearing a pair of asbestos-laced mitts and never gave it a thought. Asbestos use in domestic textiles was progressively restricted from 1985 and entirely banned in the UK by 1999 under the Asbestos Prohibitions regulations. Selling, supplying, or even reusing those products is now a criminal offence, and any kitchen still containing them legally requires licensed disposal. The oven gloves your Nan used 3 times a day for 2 decades are now classified as hazardous waste. The roast was probably fine. The mitts were quietly killing her. Number 9. Saccharine tablets dropped into a child's tea. Saccharine had been used since the late 19th century, but its mass arrival in British homes came with the slimming culture of the 60s and 70s. Your mum, watching her figure, kept a little dispenser by the kettle. Tap tap, 2 tablets into your morning tea before school. She would drop one into your Ribena. The tablets were stamped with tiny crowns and dissolved with a fizz. Then in 1977, Canadian researchers linked saccharine to bladder cancer in male rats. The United States proposed a ban. Britain held off, but warning labels became mandatory in many jurisdictions, and saccharine was reclassified, restricted, and eventually rehabilitated under tight controls. Giving an unmeasured number of tablets to a small child, as your mother routinely did, would now contravene the maximum tolerable daily intake guidelines set under EU food additive law. The casual sweetening of a kid's drink became a calculation. Number 8. Veal from crated calves. The veal escallops that appeared on slightly aspirational 1970s dinner party menus, often served in cream and tarragon sauce from a Marguerite pattern cookbook, came almost exclusively from calves raised in narrow wooden crates so they could not turn around. They were fed milk replacer to keep the flesh white and anemic. Britain banned the veal crate system in 1990, fully 20 years before the rest of the European Union followed in 2007. Importing crate-raised veal into the UK is now an offence under the Welfare of Farmed Animals regulations. The pale, tender, melt-in-the-mouth veal that defined sophistication for an entire generation of suburban hosts can no longer legally be produced or sold here. The dish itself remains. The ingredient your hostess served has been outlawed for over 30 years. Number 7. Horsemeat openly displayed in butcher windows. In certain parts of Britain, particularly in larger cities with continental populations, butchers in the early 1970s still displayed horsemeat alongside beef, lamb, and pork. It was cheaper, leaner, and entirely legal. Your mum may not have bought it, but she would have walked past it without comment. By the 1990s, horsemeat had largely vanished from British retail, partly through cultural disapproval and partly through tightening regulations on equine traceability. Following the 2013 horsemeat scandal, when frozen lasagnas were found to contain undeclared horse, the rules tightened further. Selling horsemeat in the UK is not technically illegal, but it requires extensive paperwork on the animal's veterinary history, drug residues, and slaughter conditions, with strict labeling under the Food Information Regulations. The casual horse joint in the butcher's window is now functionally impossible. The cheap protein of working-class kitchens is gone. Number 6. Backyard rabbit slaughter at the kitchen sink. Every allotment shed in 1973 had a hutch round the back, and Saturday morning often meant your dad fetching a rabbit for the pot. He would dispatch it with a sharp blow behind the ears, hang it from the back door handle, and skin it over the kitchen sink while your mum had the casserole pot already warming. Children watched. It was not gruesome. It was lunch. Today, slaughtering an animal for any commercial purpose, including swapping with a neighbor, must occur in an approved abattoir, and selling rabbit meat from a domestic kitchen contravenes the food hygiene regulations. Even slaughter for purely personal consumption now requires compliance with welfare codes that prohibit certain methods once considered standard. The Saturday rabbit, dressed by Dad on the draining board, is now a multi-paragraph violation of modern law. Number 5. Raw eggs in trifle, mousse, and homemade mayonnaise. Third pattern break. A 1970s dinner party would not exist without raw eggs. Your mum whipped them into chocolate mousse, folded them into trifle topping, blended them into mayonnaise, and built a Christmas pudding sauce on the assumption that nobody would get ill. Then came 1988, when Edwina Currie, Junior Health Minister, announced on television that most British egg production was infected with salmonella. The political fallout was enormous. She resigned. Egg sales collapsed. The Lion Code was eventually introduced, vaccinating laying flocks. But for a generation between Currie's pronouncement and the 2009 reforms, the casual use of raw eggs in any food served to vulnerable people was effectively forbidden by the Food Standards Agency guidance. Care homes, hospitals, schools, and many restaurants are still prohibited from serving raw or lightly cooked egg without lion-marked stock. The trifle of childhood, with its raw egg foam topping, is now legally restricted in most institutional kitchens. Number 4. Cockles, whelks, and winkles unrefrigerated all day. The seaside trip in 1972 always ended with a paper cone from the shellfish stall on the front. Cockles dripping with vinegar, whelks chewy as rubber, winkles you levered out with a pin. The stalls operated in full sun for hours, the trays sitting at ambient temperature, the gulls hovering. Nobody died. Plenty got ill quietly and never connected the dots. The food hygiene regulations now mandate strict temperature control for live and cooked shellfish, with cooked product required to remain below 8 degrees Celsius and live shellfish stored under controlled conditions with traceability paperwork from the harvesting bed onwards. The cheerful seaside stall, trays of winkles glistening in the August heat, would now be shut within minutes by an inspector. The smell of vinegar and brine on Brighton seafront has been quietly regulated into history. Number 3. Coal tar food dyes in everything red. Here is the one that was banned outright that I mentioned at the start. Amaranth, also called Red 2 and E123, was the deep crimson color in your blackcurrant jelly, your maraschino cherries, your raspberry ripple ice cream, and your pink Battenberg. It was a coal tar-derived azo dye. In 1976, the United States banned it after rat studies showed potential carcinogenicity. The UK and the EU permitted it under restriction, but its use collapsed as manufacturers reformulated. By the 2000s, several related red coal tar dyes had been further restricted, including Ponso 4R and Allura Red, with mandatory hyperactivity warnings on any product containing them. The deep, almost violet red of your Nan's homemade jelly, the color your wedding cake icing was supposed to be, came from a chemical that British and European regulators now treat with serious suspicion. The pink of childhood was a laboratory experiment running on us in real time. Number 2. Aluminium pressure cookers without modern safety valves. Every kitchen in 1973 had one. The Prestige, the Tower, the Hawkins. Heavy aluminium pots with a single weight that rattled and a rubber gasket that perished every 2 years. Your mum cooked stewing steak in 40 minutes flat, and the kitchen ceiling bore stains where one had let go in the 1960s. Older models, particularly those made before 1980, lacked the secondary safety release that became mandatory under the pressure equipment safety regulations, as updated in 1999 and revised again in 2016. They also leached aluminium into acidic foods, contributing to dietary aluminium intake at levels modern toxicology now considers unwise for elderly people and infants. Selling a pressure cooker made before 1980 today as fit for use would breach product safety legislation. Your Nan's Prestige, which fed the family every Tuesday for 3 decades, has been quietly classified as defective equipment and pulled from every legitimate resale channel. And finally, in first place, number 1. The unrefrigerated meat pie on the bakery counter all day. There was no greater symbol of British baking in 1972 than the row of pork pies, steak and kidney pies, and Cornish pasties on a glass shelf above the bakery counter from 7 in the morning until closing. Warm, then cool, then warm again as the sun moved round. Your Nan would buy 2 on her way home, and they would sit in her shopping bag until tea. Nobody refrigerated them. The jelly inside the pork pie was assumed to be its own preservative. Following the implementation of the Food Safety Temperature Control Regulations in 1995 and the EU General Food Law of 2002, any meat product containing a perishable filling must be held below 8 degrees Celsius or above 63 degrees Celsius, with strict time limits between. A bakery displaying pork pies at room temperature for an entire trading day now faces immediate prosecution and forced closure. The single most British thing on this list, the warm pie on the counter, is now the regulatory equivalent of dynamite. Environmental health officers have built careers on shutting it down. So there you have it. 20 cooking habits that defined a British decade, every one of them now a violation of something. Some of these regulations clearly saved lives. Others arguably went too far. Most fall somewhere in between, the price we paid for safer kitchens and longer lives. Tell me in the comments which of these you remember from your own childhood, and share your memories. The hanging pheasant, the doorstep raw milk, the pork pie that sat on the counter all day and never killed anyone you knew. Your Nan was not reckless, she was just living in a country that had not yet been quite so thoroughly inspected. Hit subscribe if you want more, and I will see you in the next one.